Okay, everyone. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining this webinar on achieving process excellence using process mining, which is a joint effort between KPMG, Celonis, and Automation Anywhere. And what we'll do today is walk you through the combination and also the potential value of the combination of using process mining and RPA, and how those two can interlink and basically mutually benefit from each other. So thanks for joining. Before we get started, there's a couple pointers that we'd like to give out to the audience. So firstly, all attendees will be muted throughout the session. Secondly, the session will be recorded, so there's no need to record on your own. And we will record we will share this recording also with you after this call. And thirdly, in case you have any questions, there's a Q&A session reserved at the end. You can submit your question via the GoToWebinar panel at any point during the presentation, and we'll pick and select the most interesting questions also to answer and feedback at the end of the session. So please feel free to use the panel and get your questions in. So your host for today, myself, Pepijn van Eck. I'm a manager in the KPMG Robotics and Operational Excellence team. So basically what we do is we help our clients achieve process excellence throughout leveraging the latest technology in the field of intelligent automation. Secondly, we have Sutter Jones. He is the Vice President of Product Marketing at Celonis. So he will be sharing also the insights from the Celonis point of view. We have Elham Ramzani. She is a manager in the KPMG Global Process Mining Center of Excellence. And is a clear expert on the field of process mining. And we have Rolf Siegel. He is a senior manager of customer success at Automation Anywhere, and interestingly also worked at Celonis previously, so he's perfectly capable of also making that bridge between process mining and RPA. So I'll start off with some research that we did earlier this year, where we really see in the market currently that companies are basically getting out of this proof of concept pilot phase in the field of intelligent automation, and really are looking at, so how do we scale this and how do we get all the benefits and potential benefits of this intelligent automation in our company. So for example, if you look at our research, we had 71% of our respondents answer that they believe that their function level intelligent automation programs are deemed to be either at scale or will be there within 1 year. And we had roughly half of our respondents comment that they will have a fully scaled and industrialized intelligent automation program by next year. So really what we're seeing is this move towards scaling these capabilities. So specifically for this webinar on both the RPA and process mining fields. And as we'd like to make this session also a bit interactive, we'd also like to get your view on where you stand today. And we've included some polling questions for you also to answer. And we can have a feel of whether this research also resonates with the people in this call today. Our first question that we'd like to ask you is, where are you in your RPA journey? You can select one of 4 answers. One is, I haven't started yet, so we didn't start RPA yet. 2 is, we're starting, so we're really piloting this and in a pilot phase. The third is, we started and we are scaling up right now. And the last option is that you have a mature RPA capability with an established COE within your organization. So I'll give you some time to vote on this question. Okay, thanks for your feedback. So I think it's relatively evenly split. We see there is 37% of people that haven't started yet. 22% of people are starting with RPA, so really piloting this. 29% of people are scaling up, so indeed there's this move towards scaling intelligent automation, and 12% really have a mature established capability with a COE. So that's good to see. And I think also very interestingly, 37% that haven't started yet. So we'll also share our insights on what RPA is and how it can link with this process mining. So we prepared also a second question for you, which we'd like to ask. the second of 2 questions, which is which technologies are you currently using? In this case, we have 5 answers, potential answers. The first is both, so RPA and process mining. The second one is RPA and process mining, but separately, so not integrated. The third one is RPA only, fourth, process mining only, and the fifth option is neither of the both technologies. Okay, let's see. So we have our answers that came in. We see that 4% are using an integrated approach between RPA and process mining, and 19% are using RPA and process mining separately. We see 43% using RPA only, 13% using process mining only, and also about 1 in 5, so 21% are using neither technology. And so we really hope to give you this insight in, so how can it benefit to use RPA and process mining in the integrated fashion? And we'll hope to also have this 4% number on the integrated approach between RPA and process mining increase in the future. So we'd really like to show the value of doing that. So the agenda for the rest of the webinar will be in 5 areas. So firstly, what we'll do is position process mining as the accelerator of the intelligent automation journey. Secondly, Celonis will share some insights on process mining, so their technology. We will have a demo from KPMG on for RPA powered by Celonis process mining. Fourthly, we will discuss further possibilities for technological integration. And lastly, as I said, there's the opportunity for you also to submit questions in the Q&A panel. And please do so, and we'll have some feedback and some answers to your questions in the end. So we'll start with the first part. And really what we want to do is position basically process mining and RPA in the wider intelligent automation framework. So where we see that intelligent automation, which is a combination of technologies, which I'll go to in a bit more detail on the next slide. And we see that this has enabled changes in operating models on basically 4 main areas. So one being customer engagement. So we see changes there because of intelligent automation. Secondly, on the changing nature and value of assets. Thirdly, there's impact on the workforce towards the future. And fourthly, we see that everything is going towards an as-a-service model. So I'll quickly walk you through the 4 of them. So firstly, on customer engagement. So firstly, on customer engagement, we saw that previously organizations were managed from the back, middle, and front office, and using intelligent automation technologies, and especially the combination, allows you to create one seamless one touch point with your customer and have this seamless processing in the background. Secondly, we see on the value of assets side, we see that there's this move from standardization towards innovation. This also has impact on the workforce of the future, right? The people that actually need to do this. So moving from the standardization and process and efficiency focus towards innovation and design thinking and technology focus on, so how do I best manage these processes? And lastly, which also covers the topic of this webinar quite nicely, we saw organizations moving from activities being bundled as services and being sold as services towards platforms being bundled as solutions. And what we're talking about today is really the solution of bundling the RPA and process mining platforms. So why do organizations do this? Well, we really see this as a search for scalability and flexibility. So if we look at the digital winners, so organizations like Netflix, Facebook, Airbnb, Alibaba, basically what they have is scalability and flexibility. So when there's additional customers coming in, there's no need to grow, for example, the employee base or the amount of processing on the back end with the same percentage as the growth in terms of the number of customers. And our journey and our aim is to really help organizations to become as scalable and flexible as possible, even though business models might not always allow the same level of scalability and flexibility as those companies mentioned earlier. So how do we do this? By leveraging a combination of intelligent automation technologies. And in this specific instance, this webinar will focus on the combination of process mining and robotic process automation. Thanks. And for the second part, I'll hand over to Celonis to do a further deep dive on the process mining technology.
Thanks so much. Yeah, let's go ahead to the next slide and we'll dive into what is preventing folks from being able to achieve that level of scalability and flexibility that we see in those digital winners or digitally native companies. And for most of us who are not digitally native or born in that era, we are either burdened or blessed with a wonderful world where we have lots of systems in our life and in our operations, and that can be from Oracle to SAP to Dynamics, and in any one single process that we have, order to cash or purchase to pay or any internal operation, it has across many of those systems. And it's not just the systems of our core IT systems, but it can also be even on the desktop. And even something as simple as approving an invoice can jump between a web browser to an Excel document to an Outlook email to and back to your ERP system. And when you do that, what happens is friction happens. And that results in either a poor customer experience or perhaps some risk in your compliance or audit or higher cost. So becoming, if you will, digitally native and achieving a system where you have that flexibility and scalability you all hope for to achieve is hard. So if you go to the next slide, what we hope to do here at Celonis is bring all of those systems, whether or not that's on your desktop, so we call that user interaction data. So that might be how folks are interacting with applications in Chrome or Excel or Outlook, to how an order or a purchase order or a customer service request is flowing through your backend systems. That might be SAP, Oracle, or Ariba, or whatever have you. We extract all that data and we bring it into our system, and we do two primary things. One is we give you a visual of that process, and you'll see a demo of that very shortly. And secondly, we provide you with a next best action recommendation. So we give you visibility into the objective view of how your process is happening, and then we provide individuals who are in the midst of that process with recommendations on how to take smarter actions throughout their process so they can achieve a level of flexibility they hadn't seen before. The result is you have more improved customer experiences, you reduce your operating costs because you can do things in a faster, more streamlined approach, and you can mitigate risk because you have complete transparency. So go to the next slide. So how does that work? Like what's behind the scenes? And we're going to show you here in a demo in a second. But in short, what happens is you connect to your source system. So that Celonis provides a number of connectors from 70 some different source systems that are pre-built. We extract that data, and then we provide an analyst a view that gives them an objective, new, and somewhat compelling view of how their process really happened. So instead of a whiteboard or a lot of sticky notes, it's a interactive view of how things are happening in your process, but also where friction is that is preventing you from achieving your one single outcome that you want to achieve. Then we provide what we call our action engine. You'll see that here briefly in a demo as well. And that's where we recommend better actions to avoid that friction in the future. So instead of alerting you to bad things happening, which you might see in your BI system or some other system, we are proactively alerting you to things that might happen in the future so that you can avoid those friction points, or proactively alerting you to opportunities you could achieve so you can improve a better outcome. So we monitor your performance so that you can show that there's value in your project, but also see where things are going as well as you had planned or not, so that you can adjust accordingly. Next slide. So this is a more technical view. For those in the phone, they're more technology related to what I just described, which was more of a conceptual view. You can see how we extract that data both from a process mining, which is you're extracting data from your source systems, SAP, Oracle, Salesforce, ServiceNow, Coupa, what have you, and task mining, which is where we extract data from what's happening literally on your desktop. So we can see both views of the world, not just the mid-level view from a system perspective, but also like the very tactical view of what actually happens when someone tries to do something to complete a process on the desktop, we bring those two worlds together in what's called process intelligence, and then we allow you to discover the issues, enhance the process, and monitor that. On top of that, we offer pre-built applications to optimize for a very specific outcome. Working capital, on-time delivery, customer onboarding, what have you. Let's go to the next slide. And so an example of that, just to make it real, is a joint customer between Celonis and Automation Anywhere, and in their procure to pay or accounts payable world, what they were trying to do is understand how they could pay their invoices in a more efficient way and ensure that they were not missing out on cash discounts or paying in the optimal time to improve their working capital. And what they found with Celonis was they discovered within weeks that there was $80,000 of cash discounts they could capture that they weren't previously capturing. And in the next couple of weeks, they found that there was actually close to $500,000 in cash discounts they could also capture if they better optimized how they were paying their invoices. And for those on your phone saying that seems like something for a big company, what we have found working with small organizations from $50 million in revenue to massive organizations like Uber or Siemens and Vodafone is that every organization has starts in the places in their processes where they can improve both their way that they process their invoices to improve their cash discounts, but also the speed through things like RPA and automation to ensure they can do it in a more efficient way. And I think Becton Dickinson is a perfect example of that. So and back to the next slide, and we'll pass it back to.
Thank you, Stothard. Hello, everyone. A warm welcome also from my side to this webinar. As introduced by Papan, my name is Elham Ramazani, and I'm managing the Center of Excellence for Process Mining within KPMG. Today, I would like to discuss with you how in KPMG we leverage from process mining technology to support and accelerate RPA projects. But firstly, I would like to tell you how we see the synergies between the two technologies, RPA and process mining. Considering the RPA journey, especially from the technology perspective, first we need to identify the areas in a process that are good potentials for automation. Process mining can be leveraged to detect these areas and the fragments in a process that are executed in a high volume, and they do not have complex logic behind it. After detecting what needs to be automated, we need to understand what are the exact steps taken for executing a specific task. For this, we can leverage from UI loggers like task mining of Celonis, which records manual user behavior. This information then can be used for configuring and developing bots. Celonis process mining can also be used to automatically trigger a bot for execution of a specific task. And finally, bots themselves also generate data, which can be analyzed by process mining to give insights about the bot performance and possible improvement points. To make the link between process mining and RPA a bit more tangible, we have prepared for each phase that are shown here a demo. I will give you a demo on the KPMG RPA Scout, which covers the first step, and the KPMG Bot Analytics app, which covers the last step. The other two demos associated with the second and the third step will be shown by Celonis in the remaining part of the webinar. So when it comes to process compliance and process efficiency, one of the challenges we face is understanding how processes is being executed in reality. Process mining gives a transparent view to the black box of processes. It learns a process model out of the process execution data, how it happens in reality. What you're looking at is the KPMG RPA Scout built on Celonis process mining. In the middle, you see the process model discovered from a purchasing process. As you can see, the process starts here and it ends here. The hexagons in the middle are the activities that have been executed in this process. For example, creation of the purchase requisition, creation of the order, sending purchase order, receiving goods, scanning invoice, and booking of the invoice. But you're looking at an abstracted view of this process. If I start to increase the variations that this process have been executed, you see that more activities and relations between them are popping up. The activities here are colored based on their current automation rate. Green activities have a high automation rate, more than 50%, and the red ones and the yellow ones have a lower automation rate. On the right side, on the top side, actually, you see several metrics that are usable for RPA teams. For example, the total number of the manual activities, the time that is spent on the manual execution of these activities, and the average automation rate. These metrics gives insight for RPA teams to understand how complex the process is and what is the potential for automation. On the right side, you see activities are sorted based on their current manual rate and also the total time that is being spent on the manual execution of an activity. For example, the activity creation of the PO have been executed more than 70% manually, and about 8,000 hours have been spent on the manual execution of this activity. You can, of course, look at also this result from different perspectives. For example, a company code, vendor side, and any dimension that you're interested. So here, based on this graph, creation of the PO is a good candidate for automation because it has been executed in a large volume, and it can potentially lead to a good gain for automation. But let's look at this process in a more closely. We can see that the creation of the PO has happened 39,000 times after the creation of the PR. So this is a process path which is actually quite straightforward. There is no complex logic behind it, and it has happened in a large volume. So it's a good candidate for automation. We can also build a business case to see how much would we gain if we automate this activity. Currently, about 4 full-time employees are doing this activity, with the average automation rate of 28%. If we manage to increase this average automation rate to 80%, we will be able to save about 6,000 hours, which can translate to 113,000 euros monetary value. This way, we can prioritize by building these business cases, we can prioritize the automation activities and automation projects. So far, you have been looking at the data from before the automation. Now let's look at the data after combined before and after the automation. We can see here in this graph, you can see that the automation of the creation of the PO over time. We see that in this month of August, we have seen a drastic increase of the automation of this activity, and that's because this is the time that the automation project was running. The current automation rate of the activity is 75%. The full-time employees numbers dropped to 1.5. We saved about 5,000 hours time, which can translate to 101,000 euros. But this is actually perhaps the most tangible outcome of this project. Now I would like to show you something which is less tangible, but equally important. Here I'm comparing the same process, purchasing process before and after the automation. Before the automation, we can see the so-called happy path of the process covers about 41% of the data. Whereas after the automation, we see the happy path covers about 58% of the total purchase volume. That means that the process has become more standardized and smoother. In addition, we can see also the changes in the process, including order changes or invoice changes. The number of the changes have dropped from 8,400 to almost 2,000 changes. So that shows that the changes that are caused due to human errors have been decreased drastically. Now I would like to also show you the another app, which is called Bot Analytics app, which basically covers the monitoring part of the monitoring perspectives of the bots. This app analyzes the logs outputted by an RPA bot as they executed a script. In this case, the bot is looking at the invoices that have been blocked by the ERP systems and tries to fix the purchase order so that the payment block can be removed or released. As we can see on the top left, there are 1,500 invoices to be processed. We can see the process flow and the main variants of it. So if I choose a couple of these variants, we see that the bot actually looks for the open invoice, it extracts the information, it runs certain type of checks and to fix the error. For example, it updates the invoice with the new information and it to be sent to the vendor. But not all the cases can be fixed by the bot, such as, for example, if the value of the invoice is too high, or in this case, for example, if the purchase order was not found, the bot needs to send the invoice to a human for further investigation. Even though that is technically sound according to the script, sending the invoice to the human is not what we would want from a business perspective. This leads us to make a distinction between two measures of error and success: technical successful cases and business successful cases. An example of an unsuccessful business or a business error was just shown here, but an example of a technically unsuccessful execution would be when bot crashes and need to reboot, which is not a normal step in the scripted process. As we can see here, the process has a very high technical success rate, but the business success rate is quite low. A successful execution from a business standpoint is one where the invoice doesn't get sent to the human, and it's only 30%. So let's deep dive in the cases that are sent to the humans. There are about 1,300 of these invoices. We can see the distribution of the errors on a daily basis, but also more important, we can also perform a root cause analysis. We can see what are the reasons that that business error, we observe the business error. We can see that the most frequent error that we receive is that the purchase order was not found. This sheds a light on an underlying business issue to be solved outside the RPA scope. Similarly, we can also inspect the 16 cases which had problems, technical problems. We identify the errors when the robot crashes and in details of the error messages. For example, the type of the error and also the exact error messages. In favor of time, I will not go into the details of this demo. I would like to ask you to note that how the logs, also the generated logs by the bots, can also be leveraged for improving the performance of a bot and also performance of a business. Now I would like to ask Rolf from Automation Anywhere to tell us examples of the further integrations between process mining and RPA.
Yes, thank you, Elham, and good morning, good evening, everyone, wherever you are on the globe. My name is Rolf Siegel. I am with Automation Anywhere within the Customer Success Department. As mentioned in the introduction, I used to work at Celonis before in the same role, and I took care of the pharmaceutical customers. So 8 out of the 10 most successful and biggest pharmaceutical companies on the globe are Celonis customers, and 6 out of those 8 were actually using Automation Anywhere. And next slide, please, Elham. Thanks. And when I worked with those customers on Celonis, they got a lot of savings, and they were all very happy. Still, the biggest business cases that we found were usually with RPA, no, the next step in the value proposition and in the overall process mining journey. And this kind of led me to switch sides and want to pursue a career within the RPA topic. Why is that the case? I personally think that the two concepts are very symbiotic and they go hand in hand very nicely. The issue of the RPA market, and this is a very open secret, is that you rely on a center of excellence, and these kind of people that you train, that maintain your bots, that might build your bots, they run through the company, and they speak to potential business users and try to figure out use cases that are then built within these structures. This is great to actually get started, but it's not really scalable. And process mining offers this kind of pull approach, the big picture with objective data, where you can calculate directly whether deploying a bot makes sense or it doesn't. So in a sense, process mining offers you the X-ray picture that you would get at the doctor, and RPA offers you the medicine. And we're just in the beginning of those two concepts coming together, but I personally think that this is going to be the future. Next slide, please. So when we look at an example here of a chemical customer, what have they been doing? They looked at the RPA Scout that you have been seeing in Ilham's demonstration of the Celonis tool. And out of those RPA Scout, you can deduct the amount of activities that are already partially automated. No, you can identify that based on the user ID, for example, in your SAP system. And you can also benchmark your company codes globally and see in which kind of company codes your process runs manual, where it runs stable, and what kind of automation rate you already have achieved. And based on that, you are able to set yourself a target automation rate and really go incrementally, step by step, globally into your processes and figure out where to deploy bots next. Next slide. Yeah, so this is how the integration between process mining and RPA looked like until recently. So you use process mining for benchmarking. No, you saw that in the RPA Scout. For example, you would have looked at the company codes, let's say the Netherlands, Canada, and Brazil, and you would have identified that in Brazil, you had very manual and stable processes with a low automation rate. So what would you have done next? You would have probably spoken to your Brazilian colleagues, and you would have identified on a user interface level, what is it that they actually did in their processes between the activities that you would have seen in Celonis, because Celonis is a very high-level tool if you only look at the Process Mining Explorer. What you could have done by then, and this was the old integration pitch, is you could have also automated your process on this generic high-level surface. And for that, Automation Anywhere offered you the bot store, where all of the activities that you see in Celonis for purchase to pay, or the cash, accounts payable, accounts receivable, ITSM, hire to retire, etc., offered adequate meta bots that you only needed to amend to automate this process on this generic level. However, what we have been seeing, and next slide, please, Elham, is that this doesn't cover the whole picture. No, as you know, between, for example, creating a purchase requisition and creating a purchase order, there might be a lot more going on in your processes than just what you do in SAP. For example, if you are in China, you might, after creating a purchase requisition, log into a government website. You might check if you can actually buy something from the supplier that you intended to buy from, and then you go back into SAP before you create the purchase order. So all these kind of things that really happen on a user interface level and that are very distinct in each and every company code, this is something that Celonis is now offering as task mining. So to come back to the example before, with the Process Mining Explorer, you would have researched the Netherlands, Canada, and Brazil. You would have identified, okay, that in Brazil, you have something to catch up with because the automation rate is not high enough. Then you would deploy task mining on this Brazilian company code to really understand what is happening on the user interface level. And this then is really capturing what is happening on the screens of the people that work there. And this, from my perspective, will be really the next logical and necessary step to actually pre-build bots on a very granular level. So you could either use this task mining output to then build and deploy bots. You could also use this task mining output to trigger skills on the action engine and then use RPA subsequently. And how those two concepts that are quite recent and quite new in the Celonis product portfolio, how they look like and how they work, this is something that Salvard is now going to explain.
I'm going to show a demonstration here for the folks on the screen and on the webinar. You're looking at what looks like a not very pretty picture. And for this demonstration, I'm going to take two roles. Initially, I'm going to be a customer service specialist, someone who processes orders at a fictitious company called PXL Manufacturing. And then in the later part of the demo, I'll be an analyst. But let's start with my world as a customer service specialist. My job is to process orders. More specifically, my goal is to ensure we deliver our orders on time to our customers. And here is a screen that I come into on a daily basis. It's not pretty. I have lots of orders I have to work on. I don't know which one I'm supposed to work on first. I have some where I'm supposed to ship to a certain place, which is the routing number, where I'm supposed to send it. Some are on credit block, some are on delivery block. I don't know where to start, so I'll just start at the very first one. And when I start at that very first one, what I have is a screen where I can enter my orders. So I can go into my ERP system, I can try to enter in the delivery priority, maybe the shipping conditions, how I remove that. But in order to do that, I need to go to my CRM system and I look for that account. This is Kinsley Construction as in this example. And I understand what they ordered in the past, because this particular order has a credit block. And I want to make sure that these orders are, this guy's going to pay on time. So I scroll through my CRM system and look for that, and I find the previous orders. But then I need to go over to Excel, and in Excel I can look for my current order value, and I understand what the average of the previous 5 orders are, what their on-time payment was, and I can see whether or not I can actually approve this credit block. But before I do that, I need to go over to Slack, and I need to talk to the people at the warehouse and find out if I can even if I approve this credit check, can I even ship this particular item they want? And for those of you on the phone saying this is not a very good demo, I say that's right, because there has to be a better way. And this is the world that where most folks who live in, who have to process orders. And in a company, getting any particular product or service delivered to the customer quickly is the most important thing they can do, but this is unfortunately the world I have to live in. So what if there was a different way? What if instead of operating that way, when I came in the morning, I operated this way? And that is, I got an inbox that just told me exactly which orders I'm supposed to work on and exactly what actions I needed to take to ensure that the most important orders and the ones that mattered the most and the ones that are going to pay on time or processed appropriately. So in this case, I'm looking at a Celonis screen. I'm no longer in the world of multiple different applications or multiple different ERPs. I have one screen, and I'm looking at Celonis, and Celonis gives me an inbox view. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit, and what I can see is there are a couple actions I need to take. One of those is approving a price change to ensure an on-time delivery. Another is removing a credit block so that I can ensure on-time delivery. Let's drill into that one as an example. And what Celonis has done is extracted all the data from those back-end systems and those front-end systems and provided with me a recommendation for next best action. It says, hey, a credit hold is placed in this particular sales order for this customer, Kinsley Construction, and their order is due like really soon. So, if I process it now, there's a 99% likelihood of an on-time payment, and it gives me the details. What were the orders in the past? It tells me that they paid on time, what the order value was, and that order value is in some cases bigger or similar to what the current order value is. So now instead of surfing through multiple different applications, I can simply take an action. I can go to my lovely, wonderful ERP system and update that order manually myself, or if I want, Celonis can automate that process through a call to an RPA bot, specifically Automation Anywhere. And I can say approve the credit for that order and fulfill the order all at once. So I click that button, and Celonis makes a call out to those Automation Anywhere, and the bot executes and says, and then I get the confirmation back that says the order has been moved from the credit block, routed to the warehouse for delivery, and the warehouse team and the customer have been notified. So, and furthermore, so that makes my life a lot better. I did in 15 seconds. That boring 2 minutes of the beginning of this demo was, I can be even more proactive and say, well, I don't want to get this alert in the future. This customer is likely to pay on time for this value of order, so let's not put a credit block on them in the future. Let's just update the customer worthiness completely. So I can click that, and what I get is confirmation that I just updated the credit score for this particular customer from those size values in my backend ERP system, and now I prevent that credit block in the future and ensure a better on-time delivery. And that's all automated. I don't have to do the work myself. And so now what you might be asking is, hey, that was wonderful, that this single screen, simple, proactive, preventative way of working, but how did that happen? How did Celonis know which orders to highlight? How did Celonis know what actions I should be taking? And how did it recommend, or more specifically, take the action with Automation Anywhere? So let's talk about that. So task mining, which Rolf just talked about, is a new offering from Celonis. What it does is it combines what's happening on your desktop, multiple application view of the world, with what's happening in your business data, your SAP and Oracle, which is a process mining view, which you saw from the demo from Elham. When you bring those two together, an analyst can look into what's happening behind the scenes and understand where the friction is in your process, and not just your system process, but your entire deep dive process. And then with Celonis, you can kick off a bot to complete that process, so it's a much more efficient and improved outcome. So let's actually dive into a demo and show you how that works. So right now, you've seen a view of Celonis, which you had seen previously from the Elham demo, and I'm showing, instead of a procurement world, I'm showing just to move things around a little bit, I'm showing an order to cash view. In this case, I'm showing exactly what you saw in that previous part of the demo. What happens when I receive an order, then I approve a credit check, or let's remove that, I receive the order, and then I confirm the order, I generate the delivery document, I ship the goods, and I send invoice. And those in the demo are saying that there's nothing exciting about this process. That's a nice little picture, but what in reality really happens? And what in reality happens is, as things change, different variations in your process happen. Celonis is showing me that in terms of approving a credit check, or extending the delivery date, or a return of the goods. But in this case, what I want to understand is, how can I improve my on-time delivery? It's only 62%. Where is it bad? If I look at only orders where I have a credit check, and that's what I'm doing right now, I see my on-time delivery drops to 42%. So when I have to approve a credit check, I have a massive, not massive, but pretty large impact on on-time delivery. And I can see in specific regions when that on-time delivery is not really poor. So in the case of the USA, when I approve a credit check, I only deliver on time 5% of the time. Let's understand, this is what Rolf was talking about earlier, what is happening in the USA on the people who are trying to approve that credit check. Let's dive in. Let's literally look into what's happening on the desktops of people who are processing those orders. And what I have now is a view of the world, which is a different view of the world. It's not a system view of the world, it's a user view of the world. And I can see the activities that the service specialists are doing. Earlier in the demo, I showed you this, and I was either confirming the product availability, looking at Slack. I was looking at the credit worthiness in Excel. I might be researching the customer history in Salesforce. So these are activities that I've seen. I can also look at what applications are using to perform those activities, whether or not it's Excel or SAP or Outlook, and I can see the distribution of that time. And I can see literally what I'm actually doing there. But most importantly, and this is the difference between Celonis task mining and perhaps a simple screen recorder, is Celonis ties back those activities to your outcome. What that means is I can now understand what activities drive a better on-time delivery. Because Celonis is not just tracking desktop actions, it's actually tracking the actions in your ERP, understanding what delivers on time. I can understand that for cohort number 5, where people spend a lot of time confirming creditworthiness and product availability, and a lot of time working in Outlook and Excel, I have a very not good on-time delivery. But cohort number 1 is a completely different behavior pattern. They spend a lot more time in Salesforce and SAP. So now I have a learning that allows me to change the behavior, or more specifically, create an automation that improves my on-time delivery. I have insight that I can turn directly into action. More specifically, I can capture the data from that, if you will, on the desktop, and my system data from SAP or Oracle, whatever your ERP system is, or another process mining, then kick off a bot, an automation anywhere, to ensure that I actually deliver on time when it's appropriate for the right orders, so I can improve my on-time delivery. So with that, I'll pass it back to Elham and go from there. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Southard. I think now is the time for questions. I would like to know what questions you are thinking of so that we can share now and we can discuss it together. So please write your questions and we'll be getting those. Okay, let me see. We have already quite some questions coming on. So the first question is, what is RPA Scout? It's basically the solution that I showed you that is used for detecting the automation potentials. It's a KPMG solution which is built on Celonis process mining. The next question is that how does system calculate automation rate? How does it decide manual and automated activity? Maybe I can give a bit. So normally whenever a transaction is done in an ERP system, it also registers what kind of users did that activity. So using that information, we basically calculate the automation rate in total for the whole process, and also on individual activity levels. I don't know, maybe Rolf, if you want to add something?
No, that was nicely explained. So essentially, when you, for example, work in SAP, you have different user IDs, batch users and dialog users. And this kind of information is part of the event log on which you mine your process. And will accurately then reflect the grade of automation that you have in your processes.
Okay. Then another question is, if I install Celonis today and use RPA Scout, within what time frame can I have the kind of information shown in the demo? So in the demo, we showed 2 periods of time. One was that the prior to automation projects, when we do an analysis, so that can basically, that analysis can be prepared depending on the source system. Of course, it can change, but normally within a week, we can prepare that analysis for you. And then, of course, you need a period when the automation project is running. That part, I think, Rolf can shed a light. And then afterwards, you need another 1 week to basically collect the data and do the analysis. So it's quite a straightforward. I don't know how long an automation project takes long. Rolf, maybe you can, or Pepijn.
Yeah, it varies a bit. I would say a typical bot implementation is something between 2 and 15 man days per bot. So the goal really to have a successful RPA deployment with a very quick return on investment is to find the use cases that are of high volume and that automate a process that was manual and stable before. And as we have seen before, the RPA Scout can give you that indication of where you find those use cases without having to rely on a center of excellence that actually runs through the whole company to figure out where those use cases might actually be in the first place.
Yeah. I also see a question, is this connected to SAP in real time? I think Southard would be best if you take this question.
Yes, thanks. And the answer is yes. Recently released probably in the last 6 months is, and we piloted this for the past year, working with a number of SAP customers, is real-time interactions. And that's critical so that you can get that action engine, if you will, interjection in real time. So yes, we are pulling data from SAP in real time. And more specifically for the technical folks on the phone, you can throttle that. Is it every 2 minutes? Is it every 30 seconds? Is it every 5 Is it literally streaming in real time? And there's reasons why you might have thought of that, but yeah, we're pulling that information in as the orders come in, if you will.
Thank you. I have one more question. They are asking what about the other use cases of Celonis and process mining? Is it automating the only one? The answer is actually no. We only showed you RPA, Scout, and bot analytics and task mining because it was relevant for intelligent automation. But in principle, there are multiple use cases for process mining. You can leverage from it in during a ERP cloud migration, for example, for internal control or compliance analysis, for process optimization and operational excellence, for optimizing shared service centers. So there are multiple use cases for it. Then there is a question which I think best would be answered by Southard. The question is, how does Celonis capture desktop level tasks? Does it require agents to be installed on the machine or not?
Yeah, and good question. So yes, there is a software, a small piece of software that is installed on each desktop that is capturing information on that desktop. And to be very clear, there's a number of privacy issues that we're addressing in terms of what applications are being captured. So you whitelist or blacklist which applications are being captured, as well as what information is being captured. That agent also encrypts all that data and sends it back up to Celonis, only that which you want to be captured. And then Celonis processes that and turns that into the analysis that you saw in the demo. But most importantly, that agent is something that is controlled centrally. So you can wipe it, you can cleanse it, you can watch what's happening, and only people that you deem necessary have access to that.
Yeah. In relation again to task mining, the question comes whether the task mining is limited to particular applications.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, no. As a customer, you can limit it yourself to which application you want to see. And furthermore, it even understands within a browser, for example, which tab, if you will, or what active window you're working in. So if you have a Salesforce.com window and you have another window you're working in Coupa or some other web-based application, it actually differentiates between the two. As a company, you decide which applications you want it to look at. In the demo, you might have saw that I had 30% of the time people working in quote-unquote other. That is, they are working in an application that you specifically said do not track this, or a window or something else you want to do not track. So you as a administrator have the ability to decide which applications you want to track, but it's not limited in any way.
Yeah. So I think we have a lot of questions. So I think in favor of time, we can answer these questions via email. So we will make sure that the questions that are not answered here will be answered via email, but the answers will be sent to you. For now, I would like to thank you and also ask you to take an action. So we discussed today the synergies between process mining and RPA, and also how process mining can be leveraged to accelerate and improve the implementation of the RPA project. Therefore, I would also like to challenge you with a call for action and ask you to start with a thorough assessment prior to any RPA project. And in addition, I think what is more important to know is that automation, of course, is not the solution to all kinds of inefficiencies. The best way would be to improve the process prior to automation, and automation can be one of the basically ways to improve and make the process more efficient. And another point is, of course, you want to use leverage process mining to detect and select the areas that will gain the most value for you, for the company, from the automation. So I think that would be using this technology will help you a lot to prioritize also automation projects. That said, of course, I would like to thank you everyone for joining this webinar. It was a lively discussion also with the questions. I want to tell you that KPMG Center of Excellence is a global community, so we can help you throughout this journey anywhere in the world, together with our partners, Celonis and Automation Anywhere. Thank you again for attending, and looking forward to seeing you in the next webinar.